It was a hard egg to get a hold of. I mean, this is a double yolk goose egg.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, exactly.
That must have hurt.
Hi, my name is Linda Mudlo, and this is Natalie Gebet. I've been teaching for over 40 years, primarily beginning with the Ukrainian Art Center, and often on our own or with other schools and programs. This particular video will be Pysanka 101. What is a pysanka? Pysanka comes from the Ukrainian word pisate, to write. So what we will be teaching you is how to write on an egg. Doesn't matter if it's a pigeon egg or right up to an ostrich egg. We will be showing you the basic techniques, and you can use it on any size you want. Eggs have been discovered in Ukraine, Eastern Europe, actually even into North Africa, with painted swirling designs that have been found evident on pottery from the Trypillian era. They would use what was available to them. The black might have been made from pitch, the brown from dried up leaves, etc. And they would dye the eggs in the best method they knew how. At that time, they have also discovered batiking methods coming out of Africa mainly that had been used at the time, and I suspect they probably would apply this to their eggs and to cover the initial first color, the second color, etc., to create your egg. During pagan times, eggs were used as special talismans for the farmers especially. This is a great example of a pagan egg where you have the fishing net, sometimes called...
In once Christianity came to Ukraine, the motif became symbolic of separating of good from evil.
That's right. Okay, so again, this is a pagan design. The sun was integral to crops, to their life, keeping them warm. The lines, although wavy, might have included water, might have included just the plantings in the field. So this is a very typical, simple design you might see in pagan times. During the pagan times, they worshipped many gods. Those gods were represented on the eggs also. As Christianity came to Ukraine in 988, we have started incorporating Christian symbols. You might see the cross. You might see a trilogy represented by 3 dots. You would naturally see churches. You might start seeing a little bit more stick figures or floral designs. As this became more popular, you then began seeing the sectioned egg and sectioned designs. The interesting part of this is it is divided into 40 sections. So again, we're reminded of Christianity, 40 days of Lent. The designs within those sections would vary. You could have it open, solid colors, you could have designs in there. It really depended on why this was being made. So if you take yourself back to a village in Ukraine, maybe 1200s, they would create these, again, for their crops. They would bury them in the field after they were made to ensure a bountiful harvest. If they knew a young girl was being married in the year to come, they would create one for the wedding. They would create one for new babies. It was made for various reasons.
Now this particular design, it does have the 40 divisions, as Linda mentioned. But if you notice, if you put the motif together, you also have what looks like a spider web with 8 arms. So the 8 arms could be either symbolic of the sun or the spider itself.
Right.
A spider is a good thing as a symbol. It's a symbol of artistry and good works. So this could be a design that one would make for a friend who is an artist with wishes for success in their endeavors.
Thank you, Natalie. I'm going to defer to Natalie on a lot of the symbolism, as she did quite extensive research into this in the 80s, I believe, when she presented a exhibit at the Craft and Folk Art Museum in Los Angeles. Is that
I think
80s?
it was in the 90s.
Oh, maybe 90s. But the
Close enough.
each egg she brought from early pagan times through regional eggs. And that's something we'll get into on more advanced classes. But as the egg became more and more popular in their design, it again was unique to certain villages. In other words, somebody in that village was artistic. They came up with something that was reused, maybe not passed on to the next village because it was a lot, time travel in between. So the designs became very regional. You have Hutsul regions with very geometric design. This end portion would be an example of just very intricate work that would be done. Again, following your symbolism, here's the star. The netting that we mentioned before to cast or to allow the...
Catch fish.
Yes.
Or to separate good from evil.
That's right. Became very popular. But in those regions, it followed the embroidery. You have certain areas of Ukraine that were very geometric in their designs with everything, not only from their embroideries to their eggs to their decorating of their own homes. There's other areas in Ukraine that are very floral in their designs. Each one, again, you pull from the area what was popular, what was being done.
What was there?
Well, yeah, what was there, exactly. So nowadays we get to choose from a wide variety of eggs to follow designs or to get our ideas from. Just to give you an example, we can do eggs. This is probably not really a pigeon egg is actually even smaller, if you can believe it. But you'll start on eggs from different types of chickens primarily. The young pullet chicken will lay a small egg.
I bet you that's the pullet and that's the banty.
Now today, this is an egg from our fridge. Look at the size difference. When Natalie and I would go out egg hunting, and this is pretty comical, we'd go to the farms and we would choose our eggs. This is how picky we were. We wouldn't, that or we would stand in the back of a supermarket and have 2 or 3 cartons open and we'd be picking. We didn't want to have anything and any blemish on our eggs or anything. So it's really actually pretty comical. But once you decide on the surface type that you like, the shape of your egg, look at this one. Look how long that egg is compared to another egg. You're going to develop designs in your head and then on paper, and it'll suit an egg or it won't. So there's a lot to be said about the egg. As you advance and as you become more skilled, I should say, we're going to branch into the larger eggs. Natalie, if you could show us. This was one that Natalie did. It was a double yolked goose egg. So I can imagine emptying that one. The largest that will go is the ostrich egg. Ostrich and emu. Emu are actually really unique because they're a very blackish gray egg, and the ostrich egg is very rough. So on those eggs, it's even a more advanced technique that we would show you later on. But they can all be used and they look fabulous. The eggs that are in the basket on the that Natalie has in her hand now were from peacocks. And these were very special eggs that a woman in our community would collect for Natalie, and then she'd work on them. So, like I said, you can go into any type of egg that you can. The tiniest of eggs, like a hummingbird egg, have been done in the past. You, of course, wouldn't be able to blow those out because of the delicacy of the shell itself. But believe me, people have put these designs on every egg that they could ever find. Besides the eggs, that's your first choice. So you're going to go out and you're going to find the eggs that you actually want to work with. After that, you're going to choose what type of instrument you would like to work on the egg with. Okay, now let's see what tools we need to create these beautiful eggs. This is a wonderful example of a early kiska. This is made out of a twig with some sheet metal that's been pounded into the wood to create a really rustic funnel. And this would have been used in the villages. They didn't have means for modern equipment. This probably would date back several hundred years. This, in fact, came from Natalie's great uncle, which was fantastic. After a while, they began to make the kiskas with a funnel that was very rustic, and it was attached to the end of a wooden dowel. Most of the time it was made out of whatever metal they had available. As that began to refine, actual molds of the funnels were brought out and again attached to wood dowels. Today we're going to be teaching with what I consider one of the original styles of kiska. And this is a dowel with a hole drilled through with a copper funnel and the copper wire. Copper retains heat much longer than sheet metal and other mediums, and this therefore became the kiska that we grew up on, and probably our parents too. So again, the ones that I showed you earlier were probably from the 1900s, 1920s, and it progressed. Nowadays, you're going to find pre-made funnels attached to plastic sticks, and these are called Delrin kiskas. Again, you're controlled on the size. So now they have created a mold for these kiskas in fine, medium, extra heavy, all types of lines that you might want to create. In the original style of kiska that we went to, they started rolling the copper thin and normal, etc. By the end of the kiskas, you could tell what size they were. This is the normal, everyday, medium kiska with the blue. And they came in blue, white, and red. Now we've got the electric kiska. Some of the new eggs that you've seen with the extremely fine lines were created with an electric, because your control of the wax, your control of the size of the funnel could be much more refined. So while everyone that I know uses this now, I don't. I'm a traditionalist. Natalie has really mastered the electric.
But let me tell you, there's something with the electric kiska, because it's machine tooled and it's so precise, and the wax comes out in the exact same size line every time. Many times your design, while extremely intricate, is a little flat. There's nothing like, honestly, and I think Linda's right when she says this and does this, using the traditional kiska that's handmade with a copper funnel, it's twisted in a little hole at the end. Well, that little hole is not perfect. The copper sheeting kind of folds against it, so it has a little bit of give and take.
Right.
And so as you're working it, your line is never going to be exactly the same size. That gives the design depth. Also, when you're using a more traditional handmade kistka like this, because of the imperfect distribution of the wax when you're drawing the lines, which give you design depth, you will occasionally, until you get used to it, it's possible sometimes your lines will be either fatter than you want,
Right.
or you're going to end up overheating it in your excitement and getting drops on your eggs. Many of these mistakes actually become symbols or are incorporated into symbols. Dots, in many cases, like the egg that we're going to be teaching today, dots on an egg can symbolize the stars in the heavens or Mary's tears, whether you subscribe to the pre-Christian or post-Christian era.
I've always told my students, your egg's been blessed. It's the tears of the Virgin Mary that fell on your egg. That always makes the children feel better about it. And sometimes as an adult, you're really bummed that this happened, but it can show the original quality of this, that they're not machine made, they're not perfectly tooled. So again, I'm a traditionalist, and this is what I teach with. Now, we can use these tools, but they're useless without the most important ingredient, and that is the beeswax. Beeswax normally comes in a light, the normal gold color. These wedges of wax that we can purchase at the store have been dyed black because you can see your lines on the eggs. So as a beginner especially, it's
I thought
easier.
they put soot in the wax to make it
They
black.
did a long time ago.
Oh.
Yeah, now it's a dye.
dye.
And so you either have a little cake, sometimes for the finer kiskas, we actually take those cakes and create little shavings. So as you're going along, in your intensity, you don't have to go and, get it off the main
Poke it.
cake. You can just keep pulling out these little shards
You
of
can
wax.
either poke it with your thumbnail,
Yeah.
which is my favorite method, or already done, and put it in.
Yeah, and that's the secret. And why beeswax? You can't use a paraffin wax. It has to be beeswax, not only because there's a low melt, causing it to flow nicer, but it also comes off the egg. And some
The paraffin comes off the egg.
Yeah, the paraffin will come off your eggs if
Pops
you
right off.
dip it in the dyes. The beeswax will soak in. Again, it's natural. Your egg is natural. They're compatible. You start putting in something that has a petroleum base or lanolin in it, it will not adhere to the egg. So we've got the eggs, we've got the kiskas, and we've got the wax. We're all set to go. What many do today is put on a little cloth glove, because remember, any of the oils in your hands, if I can get the right hole, any oils will come off on your egg, and oftentimes, it's okay, there. Oftentimes, the oils that will come off on your egg won't allow it to dye nicely.
Right.
Okay, so it's important to keep it clean. Natalie and I don't work with gloves.
But we wash our hands a lot.
Yeah, wash our hands a lot, and many people we know do work with the gloves. So I believe, again, we have to mention the dyes themselves. These come in little packets. You add boiling water, very similar to the Easter dyes you make up for the children, except these are not edible dyes. So don't use these on your boiled eggs because they will permeate it and they're not good for you. These various dyes are commercially made. I teach another class on dye making from natural items. Now, that can be you're going to get your browns, you're going to get more muted colors, you're going to get pinks, but it won't be a vibrant pink. But again, it's all natural. And that's another whole class and a lot of fun to do it. You can save all of your onion skins for a month before you do it and boil them up, and you've got wonderful dyes.
And your beet scraps.
Yes, and the beets. Of course, then you're getting your pinks. So we have a whole list of naturals that can be used also in this process. Now, what's happened now is you have dyes in purples and turquoise and neon greens, and it really has pulled away from the originals. The originals that I teach with are black, or here's a good example: yellow, red, black, sometimes orange, and sometimes green. Those are your basic original dye colors. After, let's see, this is a good example right here.
That was a beginner egg too.
Yes.
Not the one we're
And this
doing
is
today.
using your orange, your red, your basic white, that's your egg, and the black. Okay, today we're going to create this design. Be simple enough to make in the time we have on this video. Of course, if you want to join us for the intermediate or advanced classes, we'll be working on more complex designs. I would love if you can follow along with us. Make sure the tools are all around you so that once you begin to create the egg, you don't have to get up and start looking. Make sure the candle is out in front of you. Most importantly, the egg. Please take the egg out of the fridge at least 24 hours in advance so that it's room temperature. Wax will not adhere to a cold egg. Okay, Natalie, you want to start with the pencil?
Yes. First thing you do is you divide your egg. The beauty of these is the geometric design and the symmetry of your designs. So you divide your egg in half, like you're doing for deviled eggs. Use a pencil. Don't worry about it being perfect. You can always kind of go over it again. The pencil mark will eventually come off when you melt the wax off at the end of the whole process. So then you divide it a second time again, and if you notice I'm doing it the 2 times longwise. Trust me, you're going to be more exact if you do it in this order. And then the last division is you give the egg a waist.
Let me just point out something to everybody before you do that, Natalie. If you want to look at the end of the egg, top and bottom should be an X. You see
Or a
that?
cross.
Or a cross, that's right.
Now, you know, if you look here, this isn't exactly across, this isn't exactly across the middle, but it's just the pencil. Later, the wax is really what counts, so you can always go over it again with a pencil and just remember which pencil line you want to follow when you're covering it with wax. So once we've done this, you want to wash your hands. Actually, you should have washed your hands before you started monkeying around with this, but that's okay. We want to wash our hands, and the next thing we're going to need, we kind of don't need our pencil anymore, so I'm going to set it aside. I'm going to need
a kiska.
I'm going to need a kiska,
wax,
waxy paper plate,
yes,
some wax.
That's right.
And I'll show you why I want this paper plate. What I have done, and I'm sorry, I kind of took a shortcut earlier while Linda was talking. I was already starting to work on some of the wax. Before you start putting wax lines on your eggs, especially beginners, you get a little anxious about putting it on the egg, because once you put melted beeswax on the porous surface of the egg shell,
that's it.
It's there. There's nothing you can do. You can't erase it. You can't scrape it off. It's there.
One other thing I wanted to bring up when they're at the pencil stage, oftentimes beginners will think, oh, wait a minute, I need to make a correction, and they'll try to erase the line. Wrong. Any place that you put an eraser to the egg will not adhere to the dyes. So if you made a design blooper, you can even just lick your finger and wipe it off.
Or just leave it alone.
Or just leave it alone.
Leave it alone, because later the graphite is removed by the melting wax being wiped off on it. Familiarize yourself with your most important tool, the kistka. The beeswax will be placed into the top of the cone, pushed into it. As you heat up the cone on the flame, the beeswax will come out the bottom where there's a little hole, and it'll come out in a line. Before you start working on your egg, let's practice on the plate. Paper plate is a little waxy, so it kind of helps the wax come out. You want to heat the tip of the kistka, the long thin part, in the flame, and then just touch the plate. If you can get some lines going, you're in business. 3 things to practice before you start on the egg. 1 is a line, so you want to do a line. Okay, that's good. Next, you want to do like a little swirl, or like a, oh, you see, that doesn't always work so good, so you want to get comfortable, but something like that. And then the third thing, real easy, dots. We can all do those. Okay, so now we're going to get started on our egg. Now I have to put a little more beeswax in since I've been using it. One thing to remember when you're working on your egg, you want to keep your hands clean. The hand that handles the egg, try to keep it from being the hand that handles the wax.
That's a good point. Because
the wax will, particles adhere to your fingertips, and then if you touch the egg, the particles then adhere to the egg. Then the dye doesn't cover it as well as you would like. So I've already done the lines on where I had divided it earlier, and I did swirls, which are like the branches for the pussy willows. Let me tell you a little about the symbolism here. First of all, the lines going around the egg that divided the egg are eternity lines. They stand for eternity. The pussy willow branch in Ukraine, in most regions, most areas of Ukraine, the first thing to bud in spring in Ukraine is the pussy willow. Little buds come out. So it has become symbolic of spring or rebirth. So we're still working on the white egg. Now everywhere right now, you see the egg is still white. I haven't put it into any dyes yet. Everywhere where I'm applying wax, melted wax, is going to stay white.
Now, I'm going to interrupt Natalie for a moment
You go from there
here,
because I need to do
because
this fast.
as she's working, she's going to ensure that the wax is at a consistent melt, and by doing that, she keeps going back into her flame, back and forth. That way, the wax will flow evenly, will flow nicely for her. If you decide to try and create a whole design with one pass through, it won't make it.
Because what you'll end up with is a big blob because you'll overheat your kistka. Although you can get it a little bit warm, I guess I would.
Yeah, it depends. If you're filling in an area, you want it nice and warm because then it helps to cover the area involved. But if you're doing nice lines, you don't want that blob.
This is actually the hardest thing to teach because everyone has a different method.
Right.
How fast and how well the wax flows depends on how close you have the flame to your work surface. How fast you move. Slower people will take longer. The wax has more time to cool off. Everyone's different. That's why it's really good before you start on your egg to not get all nervous. Fool around on the plate.
Yeah. Or oftentimes you can just have a practice egg.
Yes.
And just do everything on that and throw it out at the end.
Well, and usually, when I give classes, and I usually do a small group, I'll have the students do 2 eggs.
Yeah.
So the first one
Yeah,
usually
I
is
usually
something like this so that they don't
Right.
worry about it, and then we do a little bit more intricate later.
Exactly.
Now we're ready to put into it the first color dye. I'm going to just real quick about symbolism, unless Linda was going to say something about it.
You go
There's
right ahead.
symbolism in color as well. White stands for purity. It really does on the Ukrainian Pysanka. It stands for purity, for youth, innocence. Now, we're just Oh, this is, you know what? I have to plug up the hole.
Oh, yes.
I'm gonna, okay.
Forgot about that.
That's
Sorry.
okay, I can do that. This is an emptied egg. So I'm gonna plug up the hole real quick. When I plug up a hole, usually for a class, I usually use the electric kistka, but this will work. You want to just get some wax around where the hole is and heat it up so it gets stuck around the...
You don't want that egg filling in with the liquid.
Well, if it does, it's not the end of the world, but it's the end of a beautiful egg.
Yes.
Okay, I think that'll hold. All right.
Okay, there's a... Okay, now see how the egg floats? Because it's hollow, the egg's not there. So we're going to use another instrument to hold the egg down.
And after it's been in the dye for a little while, check it, see if you like the color. I happen to like the color. This is sort of a...
Let me help you there.
Ooh.
Oh.
No, wait a minute. Okay, now if you notice, I picked it up off the top. Even if you're using a spoon, still pick it up with your paper towel from the top.
And again, you don't want the oils from your hand or a different color. Once you get into multiple colors, your hand can still have those colors on them, and then you'll transfer it to that egg. You want to try to avoid that.
All right, back to symbolism before we do our next part of the design. Color orange combines the wisdom of yellow and the passion of red. Orange is a good power color. When I make Pysanky for friends who are either changing jobs, hoping to get a promotion, moving, buying a new house, a new car, going back to school, getting a divorce, any of those things, orange is a good power color. Now I forgot to mention, you see this egg is orange. Where the wax had been applied before I put it into the orange dye, that part's going to stay white the whole time. This is basically, it's a wax resist process. So you're applying your colors backwards. You're starting with your lighter colors and then you're ending with your darker colors. So the next part of the design, I'm going to apply on the orange egg, and this part will stay orange, and remember orange is a power color. I'm applying the motif of basically a rake. Now a rake is a symbol for farming, for gardening, for orchards. If you notice also, the rake, at the end of the rake has a comb, which is for putting of things in order. A really good design to put on a pysanka that you might be making for your 12-year-old son to keep his room clean and in order. But it's also a good motif for someone who is growing a garden or who has a purple thumb and you're wishing them to have better luck with their herb garden. But it's also a very old motif used on Ukrainian pysanky, symbolizing, of course, the same thing. Either putting of things in order, such as your furrows, and wishing for a good harvest.
And you've got to remember, many of these eggs in the beginning were done in the villages, so naturally you have your farmers. And it is not uncommon to see forks, knives,
No.
sickles. And
Really?
a sickle.
Oh, yeah, sure,
And
sure,
actually,
sure.
a sickle is in our designs in the curved design. So before Natalie completed the pussy willow, that curve of the pussy willow was a sickle. Yeah, these were tools of the trade that were incorporated
That's true.
not in modern symbolism.
So in my excitement, I overheated my Kista a little bit, and I actually got a little more wax on this line, the handle of the rake, than I really wanted. That can't be undone. The final result in the design is it'll just be a fatter handle at that end. And the only thing one could do, and I have seen people do it, is to incorporate it as part of the design and make all of the rakes that way. But since
I don't
really
think
it's
that's
just
necessary.
this is just a smallish bit of fatter line,
Right.
I don't think it's
You're
necessary.
certainly not going to throw out your egg because
No.
of that.
No. And actually, the thicker, thinner lines here and there, again, give your design depth.
And character.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, we forgot our tiers.
Oftentimes,
Go ahead.
seed. They're called seeds.
Oh, I forgot that they're called, they can be
Yes.
seeds also. Yeah, perfect for the rake motif.
Right. And if you put 3 in a diamond shape, that's the Trinity. So these symbols, depending on what you were making,
Right.
held a lot of history, information, and motif, decoration.
Thank you. All right. Now, I think, let me get one more on here. And again, for those of you beginners, you can skip this step. You don't have to do every bit,
Right.
but you do want whatever you do, whatever motif you apply on one side of the egg, you want to apply on the opposite.
Right. And this particular egg, as it's divided, we've got the 8 fields that we're working in. As you've got one field on one side of the egg and a second copy, but then if you turn it sideways, see how the design changes a little bit? But you're still using the 4 quadrants.
Now we're ready to put, in this case, we're just using 2 sets of dies. So now
Right.
we're ready to put it into our last die, which will be the background color, and will cover over everything except for the rakes and the dots that we applied hot wax on the orange egg.
Pull this
Yeah,
out
just
for
take
you.
that out altogether. Yeah, I'm just gonna push
Oh.
it down.
Okay.
Oh, we keep getting
Yeah, yeah.
stuck.
Put
That's
that one
why
on
I
the
don't
bottom.
like these things. All right.
There you go. Okay.
Now, well, oh, I see, okay.
Okay.
No, because you
No.
still have
Yes,
to cover.
I just realized.
Yeah, there you go, just push it down.
It's easier to use a raw egg.
That's what I always do. But some
Just
people
hold
are,
it down.
some people, thank you.
Yes.
Some beginners may be more comfortable with an empty egg that's plugged up.
It's useful when you're teaching children.
Yes.
You end up with...
Most of my adult beginners are very brave. They go with a raw egg.
Right. Let's see.
But I think
these
because-
guys were taking pretty fast.
Yeah,
Look at that.
We don't want you to be
No,
sitting around
no.
forever.
Sometimes orange or this pumpkin, I find that the orange doesn't cover as quickly, and you end up with a little bit of a mottled.
Sort of like a brownie black
Right.
instead of a
Right.
full-
So I think it is better if we're patient and hold this
Okay.
down.
I think we're ready to take it out of the die. Let's
Alrighty.
not keep
Let's see
these
what color.
watchers sitting waiting.
There we
forever.
go. Again, she reaches in and picks up the egg with the paper towel.
And pat, pat, pat.
Very
You want it
important.
nice and dry, and reuse your other towels. I mean, as long
Yeah.
as you're getting into the darker colors, you want to,
And that's the beauty of going from light to dark.
yeah. And you want to reuse everything. We want this to be an economical folk art. You know, these dyes, you can dye up to 80 eggs, if not more.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever counted.
There have been seasons.
Ah.
Not this one. the whole design, all of the motifs. On this one, we use 2 colors, really to better show you how it works and for you to do it too.
And just the idea of using 2 colors or getting used to going in the different dye baths as you progress.
And let me tell you something. The difference between a simple egg like this or this and one like this that's super intricate, the biggest difference is making the designs smaller and repeating them more frequently around the egg. That's it. It's no more complex than that. So this is where you start, and it's up to you how far you want to take it. There's a difference between how you're going to handle melting the wax off your egg, depending on whether your pysanka is done on a emptied egg or a full one. A full egg, a full raw egg, takes a while for the insides to warm up, so you're going to hold it to your candle flame a little bit longer before you really see the wax starting to get shiny to be wiped off. An empty egg is just an eggshell and air on the other side. That's going to heat up real fast. So you want to be careful to not hold it to the flame too hard. One other thing to remember, the hottest part of the flame is up here. The top, the tip is absolutely the hottest part. Never put your egg at the tip of the flame because it'll char your egg.
All the soot.
And it will not be fixable. The tamest part of the flame is right in the middle. You know, when you saw your great Uncle Joe use his fingers to turn off, yes, he caught it in the middle. That's how he did it. If he'd have done it at the top, he'd have gone owie. Yeah, learn that one. Okay, so we're going to go very slowly just on the side of the flame. And as soon as you see the wax looking a little shiny, move it back and forth so it doesn't get too hot in one spot. You'll be sorry. And then give a nice little wipe. And you can see where your pussy willow is coming through. Now I'm using a clean towel, not one of the previously used because they're still a little damp. So I didn't want to compromise.
The color of the dye can come off on the white portion of your egg. So we don't want you putting in an hour of work just to be ruined by a little yellow transfer.
Another thing that's really also nice to use, these happen to be very soft paper towels, but if you have those harder paper towels, you might want to consider seeing if there's a box of Kleenex somewhere around.
Yes.
The softer the towel
Right.
that you use to melt off the wax, the better, because you can feel where the wax is and where you want to heat it up to melt it, to take it off.
Now, over the years, I've found that the Viva brand paper towels are soft but absorbent, and you can use only 2 or 3 throughout the process of the egg, whereas the harder ones...
We should ask them for a donation.
There we go.
That's true.
I want to give you a little bit more background. Both Natalie and I originally were taught or learned the pysanka from our elders. I learned directly from my grandmother. Natalie learned it from a great aunt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so these were the immigrants that had come over. We were learning it firsthand. The interesting note, my grandmother in particularly always wanted to promote and ensure that our traditions were going to be passed down. The whole process of learning a craft that has been done in your family for years is so special. Many people, especially with Americana, cross-stitch embroidery, making the calendars that they would do, or
samplers.
Samplers.
Samplers,
That was the word. That was passed down here in the United States and passed down in generations. So every generation has something that they can pass down to their children. So again, we learned very early on, and most of the Ukrainians that are coming in the last 20 years, I believe, didn't necessarily know how to do this. This was something that was lost in Ukraine during the Soviet occupation. We were actually very surprised. We have a woman in San Diego that learned here, and she's probably one of the most beautiful Pysanka writers that you ever would want to meet. Just exquisite eggs, but she learned here, not in Ukraine. So this is an art form that everybody can have fun with.
I just want a last note thing to say.
Yep.
I'm going to confess, this design, this was a beginner's design that I had put together. I did that one using an electric kistka.
Ah, okay.
This one I did in just as quickly
Right.
using the traditional. Yes, this is very pretty, very straight, very neat and tidy, but doesn't this one have more personality?
Definitely has character. And during a large exhibit, you can always find your own eggs then.
This is true. This is true. And no two people will do the same design the same,
Yes.
no matter how simple or how complex.
And so your egg that you're creating today does not have to look identical to the ones that Natalie has created. You've got the idea. You might have added a little bit more flair or less flair because it's your egg. It's not a manufacture thing on an assembly line where they all come out the same. And I don't believe, even if it's a design like Natalie has certain designs she'll make over and over again, and each time will be a little bit different.
And so, here's our Easter greeting to you. Happy spring, happy harvest. And what did you say?
Blessings. Oh, the Virgin Mary's tears,
What-
which bless
you
the
see-
eggs.
Which bless the eggs, but you said it was something else that I didn't know.
Seeds.
Seeds.
Seeds
And
that are
may-
planted in the spring.
And may they grow well for you.